The Anatomy of a Nightmare, Deconstructing the Skinwalker. Alright, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are lowering the lights, dropping the volume, and setting a highly suspenseful stage. Because today, we're looking at what happens when chilling, modern internet folklore violently collides with deeply ancient, sacred myth. We're going to completely deconstruct one of the most terrifying legends out there.
To really grasp the visceral, deep-seated fear surrounding this legend, we kind of have to start with how people are experiencing it right now, today. So I want you to imagine just for a moment that you're alone. You're out in the vast, quiet expanse of the high desert. The stars above you are incredibly bright, the wind is completely dead still, and literally the only sound you hear is the rhythmic crunch of your own footsteps. There's this deeply chilling campfire story that a user shared over on Reddit, documenting a camping trip right in the middle of the beautiful, sweeping landscapes of the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. The user and his best friend Jake had set up camp near a canyon. Around midnight, Jake heads into the tent to get some sleep, leaving the user outside alone under this brilliant Milky Way. Suddenly, the total peace of the desert is completely shattered. A low, guttural growl echoes up from the canyon. And then comes a voice. The user said it sounded distorted, almost like it was being broadcast through a broken radio, but there was no mistaking it. It was his best friend's voice whispering, "Come here." Confused, the user turns and looks right into the tent. Jake is fast asleep, completely out. Then the voice calls out again, this time from the dark ridge just beyond the campsite. The user grabs a flashlight, shines the beam into the tree line, and illuminates this absolutely horrifying figure. It looked like a man, sure, but its limbs were way too long. It had this mottled, sickly gray skin and eyes that glowed a pale, dead yellow. But honestly, the absolute most terrifying detail, the creature was wearing Jake's face. As they frantically packed up their car and practically flew out of there into the night, the creature actually mimicked their earlier casual conversations, its yellow eyes just watching them from the dead center of the road.
Okay, let's dive into this. That story, while it's absolutely terrifying, is really just the modern surface of a very deep, incredibly ancient belief system. If we want to really understand this, we have to strip away all the Hollywood monsters, peel back the internet memes, and begin our investigation into the true roots of this legend. So what exactly is this entity? Where does it actually come from? And why on earth has it struck such a profound, lasting chord of terror in human psychology?
Well, to answer that, we have to look directly at Navajo folklore. The traditional term used by the Dene, the Navajo people, is Yi-nad-lushi, and that translates roughly to, by means of it, it goes on all fours. Now, this is a totally crucial distinction, and honestly, it's one that most people get entirely wrong. A skinwalker is not some generic cryptid out in the woods. It's not an alien. It's not some naturally occurring biological monster. It is a human being. Specifically, it is a human being who has become wholly corrupted. We're talking about a shaman or a medicine man who has actively, consciously turned their back on healing and embraced dark magic. They represent the absolute antithesis of everything Navajo cultural values stand for. I mean, think about it. While a traditional medicine man dedicates their life to healing and bringing harmony back to their community, the Yi-nad-lushi deliberately perverts that exact same sacred knowledge for malicious, deeply evil intent.
And you don't just stumble into this. The process of becoming one of these dark figures is definitely not an accident. It is a horrific, calculated choice. The path to becoming a skinwalker requires someone to willingly sacrifice their own humanity. It's kind of like a twisted, dark mirror to the healing path. First, they actually have to master the ways of traditional healing. They literally have to know the good magic inside and out to truly understand how to manipulate the bad. Second, they actively choose to walk the dark path, which is known in the lore as the witchery way. Third, and this is without a doubt the most chilling part, they have to break a profound cultural taboo to solidify their power. According to the ancient lore, this almost always involves the ultimate betrayal, the outright murder and sacrifice of a close family member or a deeply loved one. Let that sink in. Only after committing this unspeakable act of pure evil can they finally don the animal skin, which is usually a coyote, a wolf, a fox, an owl, or a bear, and complete their horrific transformation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how closely these ancient, deeply documented abilities match the terrifying modern encounters we constantly read about online today. The primary power obviously is shapeshifting into those specific animals, but their traditional lore goes way beyond just changing form. They are said to possess this extreme supernatural speed. In one strictly documented account from our sources, witnesses saw a giant wolf-like creature running on two legs alongside a car that was traveling over 60 miles per hour, and the creature was just keeping pace effortlessly, no exertion at all. They also use vocal mimicry, literally stealing the voices of trusted loved ones or mimicking the sounds of crying babies, specifically to lure vulnerable victims out into the dark. They are believed to be fully capable of mind control, causing total paralysis just through sheer overwhelming fear, and casting curses that bring on sudden, severe illness. So that modern Reddit encounter with the broken radio voice we talked about, that's not a new internet invention. That is a direct, terrifying reflection of this deeply traditional terror.
And despite their incredibly heavy presence in modern pop culture right now, it is absolutely vital for us to understand the deep cultural respect and the very real, profound fear surrounding this legend within the Navajo community. Listen, this is not just a spooky campfire tale to the Dene, not at all. It is viewed as a very real, very dangerous spiritual threat. Traditionally, the Navajo will absolutely not speak with outsiders about these creatures. In fact, it's considered a strict, heavy taboo to even discuss them amongst themselves, especially at night. The belief here is incredibly potent. It's thought that simply saying the name out loud acts like a beacon. It attracts the creature's dangerous attention directly to you. To speak of it is essentially to invite it into your life.
From ancient lore to paranormal hotspot. So this brings up a huge question. How exactly did a deeply guarded, highly taboo subject belonging to the American Southwest suddenly become this massive global phenomenon? To answer that, we have to shift our narrative away from the Navajo reservation itself and look a bit further north. We're heading to a highly specific 512-acre property situated in the Utah Basin of Utah. It is right here, in a place already surrounded by very ancient Ute mythology, that this old legend violently collided with modern, heavily funded paranormal investigation. This specific piece of land would eventually become infamous all over the entire world.
If we map out the timeline of this property, which is now famously known as Skinwalker Ranch, it reveals a completely bizarre history. Let's start in 1994. The Sherman family buys the ranch just to raise cattle, right? Normal stuff. But almost immediately, they start reporting totally inexplicable horrors. We're talking livestock mutilations performed with surgical precision, glowing orbs just hovering silently over their fields at night, and, terrifyingly, a giant wolf that allegedly attacked a calf and appeared to be completely immune to multiple point-blank shots from a .357 Magnum. Just shook it off. The psychological stress of all this eventually drove the family out. Then, in 1996, aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow buys the ranch. He brings in NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, and they conduct a massive, heavily classified scientific study with distinct links to the federal government. Fast forward a couple of decades to 2016, and real estate magnate Brandon Fugel purchases the property, eventually turning the ongoing investigations into a highly publicized media franchise. Now, regardless of whether you personally believe the scientific validity of these claims or not, the sheer, documented volume of reported anomalies on this one specific plot of land is just staggering.
So does the phenomenon stay on the ranch? This right here is where the story shifts from being just a localized geographical mystery into something far, far more insidious. During Bigelow's extensive, nearly 20-year investigation, his team of highly trained scientists, military personnel, and researchers came to a truly terrifying realization. The deeply disturbing answer to that question, according to the investigators themselves, was no. The anomalies absolutely did not stay contained within the physical fences of that Utah property.
They ended up calling it the hitchhiker effect. The phenomenon literally began following the researchers, and sometimes even brief federal visitors, all the way back to their private homes, often thousands of miles away. And we aren't just talking about a lingering feeling of unease here. These were tangible, physical disruptions. Investigators reported unexplained, heavy, drum-like knocking on the interior walls of their own homes. And it was specific. 2 quick hits, a pause, then a strong hit. Rhythms that absolutely couldn't be explained away by a house just settling. There were sudden, violent pressure shifts in completely empty rooms that would physically bend doors inward. But the most unsettling part of all? The vulnerable families of the researchers became direct targets. Spouses experienced intense sensory events, and young children, kids who were sleeping safely in their beds with absolutely zero knowledge of the ranch or their parents' investigations, suddenly began reporting terrifying shadowy figures and this overwhelming awareness of being watched right in their own bedrooms. The ranch, it seemed, wasn't a contained scientific laboratory at all. It was an infectious starting point.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the horror didn't just spread geographically into people's homes, it spread digitally across the world. While the intense ranch investigations absolutely brought the term Skinwalker into the modern scientific and governmental lexicon, it was the digital culture of the internet that took the original legend and drastically warped it into something completely unrecognizable. As these stories bled out into online forums, massive Reddit threads, and eventually TikTok algorithms, the deep, highly nuanced mythology of the Navajo people underwent a massive, totally uncontrollable mutation.
I mean, this slide brilliantly illustrates the massive cultural confusion perpetuated by modern online horror communities. If you casually look online today, you will constantly, and I mean constantly, see the Skinwalker confused with an entirely different Native American entity, the Wendigo. Let's completely deconstruct and correct this right now, once and for all. Over on the left, we have the true Skinwalker, Navajo origin, deeply rooted in the arid Southwest. It's a corrupted human witch who wears animal skins and actively chooses to be evil for power. Then, over on the right, you have the Wendigo, an entity hailing from the Algonquian tribes way up in the freezing northern forests. The Wendigo is a spirit of cannibalism and brutal winter starvation. Originally, in the true lore, it doesn't even shapeshift. It literally represents the ultimate cultural taboo of consuming human flesh just to survive the freezing cold. And yet, if you search the internet right now, you will absolutely see skinwalkers depicted as these giant frozen monsters with giant deer skulls on their heads, which ironically is actually a corrupted modern internet version of the Wendigo. The two totally distinct cultures and their deeply, deeply different cautionary tales have just been entirely mashed together.
And this relentless digital blending birthed something completely new. It's a term you might actually see quite a bit on modern paranormal forums today, the Fleshgate. Now let's be super clear, this is not a traditional legend at all, not even close. It is a 100% generic internet creepypasta monster. Basically, amateur writers on platforms like Reddit took the terrifying shape-shifting of the Skinwalker, they took the ravenous, terrifying hunger of the Wendigo, and they even threw in elements of urban legends like the Goatman, and they just put it all into a blender. Then, massive platforms like TikTok came along and fully stripped away all the deep cultural, historical, and geographical context of the original Navajo legend. They took a profound, incredibly serious warning about spiritual corruption and turned it into a generic, shape-shifting meme that people just use to explain away literally every creepy noise they hear in the woods.
So the crucial point is this: when we finally do the work to strip away the internet creepypastas, when we set aside the UFO ranch investigations, and we ignore the Hollywood monster tropes, what are we actually left with? The true terror of the traditional Skinwalker isn't really just a scary monster hiding out in the woods. The real horror is the human capacity for evil. It is the utterly terrifying, grounded idea that a highly respected member of your own community, a trusted healer, your neighbor, could become so deeply consumed by greed and a dark lust for power that they would willingly sacrifice their own family and completely cast aside their own humanity, strip everything else away, and it's the ultimate story of human betrayal.
Which brings us to a fascinating and honestly somewhat chilling final thought for us to chew on. We started all of this by looking at a human who steals and wears the skin of an animal to terrorize others. But today, our modern digital world basically takes ancient sacred stories, completely hollows them out, wears their skins, and mutates them into entirely new, totally disconnected nightmares just for our mass entertainment. It really makes you wonder, as we sit here and endlessly consume these viral horror stories, is the internet itself the ultimate shapeshifter? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes open, always respect the true origins of the stories you hear, and I'll catch you on the next one.